Welcome back. In today's class, we are going to learn about an algae from Xanthophyta called as Vaucheria. This Vaucheria species belongs to Xanthophyceae or Xanthophyta, which is a yellow-green algae. This is the systemic classification of Vaucheria. To speak about its characteristics, they are actually an yellow-green algae. They contain the photosynthetic pigment called as chlorophyll A, but they lack chlorophyll B. Instead of that, they have chlorophyll E and C. They also possess certain accessory pigments such as xanthophyll and beta carotene. Xanthophyll is in a slightly higher concentration. That is why they appear equally yellowish in color. That's why they are yellow green algae. They are unicellular in nature, or which means it is quite long, elongated, siphonous body, as in the thalli is not separated into septa. There is no septum formation, so there are no compartments that are seen. It is a continuous thalli. It is an eukaryotic cell where the cell wall is made up of pectin, cellulose, and silica as well. The accessory pigments also include neoxanthin or vioxanthin. Apart from beta carotene, it also has a capability of storing single celled proteins. It shows sexual reproduction. Here, apart from the general characteristics, they are believed to be motile in nature. They have two flagella, but rarely one, unequal in nature. It can also be whiplash type or it can be tensile type also. There is reserved food material storage in the form of oil or fat. Occurrence is generally seen in fresh water, sometimes free floating or sometimes attached. The thalli is unicellular, symphonous body. Xenocytic condition is seen, as in the nuclei in the thalli could move freely because there is no septum restriction. This is the morphology of Vaucheria. This is how exactly Vaucheria looks like: branched, long, elongated, no septum formation. Here it is xenocytic condition, as in the nuclei can move all over the thalli freely, as there are no restriction from septum. That is why it is called as symphonious in nature, which means the thalli is not divided as different compartments by septum formation. There is sex organ formation here in the thalli, which is homoecious in nature, or monoecious in nature, where the sex organs are present in the same thalli. It is divided as the innermost cell wall and the outermost cell wall, where the innermost cell wall is made up of cellulose and the outermost cell wall is made up of pectin. Contains photosynthetic pigments, and it also contains accessory pigments along with the reserved food material. This is how exactly the thalli of your Vaucheria would look like. Here we have the rhizoids, which is the a highly modified version of holdfast, a little primitive than roots, that is called as rhizoids, which helps in the attachment. When the transfer section of the main axis is taken, this is how it looks, where it has a multi nuclei surrounding the central hollow space or the central vacuole, compactly arranged nuclei. Above that, there are numerous compactly arranged chromatophores, or the photosynthetic sockets, which holds pigments in it, is called as chromatophores, which holds photosynthetic pigment in it. It also contains reserved food materials, that is the oil droplets. This is how they look when we take the vertical section of your Vaucheria species. The reproduction of Vaucheria shows sexual, asexual, and vegetative. Vegetative is there is no involvement of spore formation. It's just happening with the thalli as itself, which can be fragmentation, accidental breakage, or physical adheration, or any sort of mechanical external force might lead to the breakage of the thalli, causes fragmentation to occur, and each fragment gets divided and develops into a new individual. In case of sexual reproduction, there are three important types of spores that are produced by the organism. These spores are namely aplanospores, achaenates, and zoospores. Zoospores firstly are produced by the Vaucheria near the tip of the main axis. In the tip of the main axis, there is a bulging that has been obtained, and that bulged part is now gets separated by the formation of septa. This septal formation is not generally seen in Vaucheria, but to show that this is a separate form now, or a different form, or it is it is not just as another branch. To show that significance, there is a septum formation and there is bulging that is formed to avoid the escape of the content from them. That bulged structure which is seen in the tip of the main branch is now called as zoosporangium. Zoosporangium are the ones which holds zoospores within it. Sporangium are generally a bag or a socket inside which it will hold the spores. So when I say zoosporangium, it is a baggage or it is a socket which holds zoospores in it. This zoosporangium maturation occurs, which is now forming a synzoospore. Synzoospore is nothing but multinucleated, multiflagellated zoospore is called as synzoospore. Synzoospore is also called as compound zoospore, which is a combination of several zoospores together forms the synzoospore, which is multinucleated and multiflagellated. Once the synzoospore matures, it gets liberated from the parent thalli, falls on the suitable substratum, undergoes the required metabolic or morphological changes, and becomes a new individual. For it, the synzoospore to become a new individual, there must be several layer formation that has to happen inside, starting from the central vacuole, having numerous nuclei around it, chromatophores being compactly arranged around it, many flagella to be formed that germinates and puts forth into a new individual. That is called as zoospore. Speaking about aplanospores, another name for aplanospores are generally resting spores or dormant spores, because they are generally formed in the unfavorable condition. Just like the way we had zoospores produced inside zoosporangium, we have aplanospores produced inside aplanosporangium. This also occurs in the tip of the main axis, where first there will be septum formation, bulging up of the tip, and septum formation and maturation of the tip, which will later become a successful mature spore, gets liberated from the parent thalli, becomes a new individual. So at the tip, there is bulging and septum formation. Aplanospores are seen inside aplanosporangium. Once aplanosporangium ruptures, the zoospores that are produced inside gets liberated, forms and falls onto a new substratum and develops into a new individual. Aplanospores in general contains many numerous spores inside us, which are generally called as microaplanospores. This is the structure or a diagrammatic representation of how exactly aplanospores are synthesized and germinates into a new individual. And the last type of spore that is produced by Vaucheria are achaenates. Achaenates are also generally formed at unfavorable condition, but more significant quality of an akinase which is capable of storing reserved food materials in it. It is highly thick, recalcitrant in nature. It is a thick gelatinous wall, makes it withstand harsh environmental condition. If during unfavorable condition, these aplanospore, akinates are produced. Akinates need not be produced at the tip of the axis. It can be anywhere in the thalli, which detaches from the parent thalli and grows into a new individual as it has all the reserved food materials stored in it. So these are the three types of spores produced during asexual reproduction. Those are akinates, planospores, and zoospores. Going ahead with the sexual reproduction, which is highly evolved form, where it is unisogamous in nature, where the morphology of the sex organs look different in case of male and female. As they can be monoecious or dioecious, the sexual reproduction remains the same. Here, this is how the female gametocyte looks like. This is the female gamete, which is oogonium, which is surrounding the antheridium. Around the mature antheridium, there would be 3 or 4 female reproductive organs present there. These antheridia are generally surrounded by oogonium like this. This is an example of a monoecious condition where antheridium and oogonium are present in the same thalli or same very close to each other. The development of the antheridial wall happens like this. In the a particular region in the thalli becomes an antheridial initial cell, puts forth a antheridial development, and there is something called as Vandersplash, which is a massive accumulation of the metabolites and the cytoplasm just next to the antheridial initial cell, which later gives rise to oogonium. Antheridial development and oogonial development might happen simultaneously or one after the other. Generally, antheridial rise happens first, and then the oogonium synthesis happens next. This Vandersplash is the oogonium initial phase, oogonium initial part, which gives rise to oogonium in the mature condition. As antheridium develops, there will be coiling up of the antheridium, and the main tip of the antheridium is the major part which produces antherozoids in it. Oogonium, once developed, produces a egg cell within it. That egg cell need to be fertilized by the antherozoids produced by the antheridia. This antheridium produces numerous antherozoids. This is a mature condition where the egg cell is also produced, which is a female part, and the antherozoids are also produced inside the antheridium. That is the male part, and this is now ready for the fertilization process. There will be a dissolving of the cell wall between the antheridium and oogonium, so that the contents, when the light content, that is the cytoplasm from the antheridium, reaches the oogonium, also brings antherozoids inside oogonium and ends up fertilizing the egg cell. There is a pore that is formed between these two, so that there will be a smooth flow of the antherozoids along with the clear cytoplasm into the oogonium, which is the receiving end, and the egg is thus fertilized. This egg, after the fertilization process, gets converted to a matured zygote, undergoes meiosis and mitosis, and germinates and develops into a new individual. First, there is a production of antheridial cell, and there is Vandersplash. Vandersplash gives rise to oogonium. Oogonium and antheridium develops, where antheridium produces numerous antherozoids. Oogonium produces one prominent egg cell. As a product of fertilization, the egg cell gets fertilized, and it undergoes mitosis and meiosis and fertilizes later. This is a conclusive diagram of Vaucheria, showing both asexual and sexual reproduction. This is the asexual production cycle, where you have the thalli with you, and that thalli where there is a tip, tip is been producing the oogonium, zoospore production happens. Here they have showed zoospore production. It can be aplanospores or achaenates again. So since zoospores are produced, how there is a tip bulging happens, septal formation, since zoospore formation, and then it gets separated from the parent thalli, become, gets germinated when falls onto a suitable substratum and develops into a new individual, and the cycle repeats. And here in case of sexual reproduction, there is a first formation of antheridium and oogonium. Antheridium and oogonial formation first has to occur, and then the fertilization should take place, where there is a pore that is formed between them, and then the anthrozoids are released inside the oogonium. This oogonium now fertilizes the egg cell, and the oospore is being formed, and this it gets divided as mitosis and meiosis occurs and germinates and develops into a new individual. This is a conclusion of how exactly sexual and asexual reproduction in Vaucheria is observed. This is a very basic application or economical importance of Vaucheria, as they are rich in beta carotene and chlorophyll. They are believed to be highly photosynthetic in nature, which are generally a good oxygen producer. It is also consumed in the Japan as a form of food or in the form of fodder. It is also used as a biofertilizer. So as we started from the introduction to Vaucheria, its systemic classification, its general characteristics, and then occurrence, and we spoke about the organization, the morphology of Vaucheria, how its transverse section looks like. Speaking about its reproduction, there are three types: vegetative, asexual, and sexual. Under vegetative, we are speaking about fragmentation. Under asexual reproduction, we are speaking about three types of spores, starting from zoospore, aplanospore, and achaenates. In sexual reproduction, yes, they show a very evolved form of sexual reproduction, where sex organs are unique. Then how antheridium development occurs, how oogonial development occurs, how is it maturing, how the fertilization occurs, and how the germination occurs is what has been briefed about and summarized using the pictorial representation. So economical importance can be emphasized at the last. So this is all we have for today's class. All the very best, and thank you so much.